1:15 p.m. This is Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news, edited by Danushka Madavala and read by Mario Vijayavardhana. The headlines. The IGP says that the Yukti Operations Office will continue. The Health Minister says that the government has decided to purchase essential drugs from the private sector. Officials of the Central Bank have been asked to attend the party leaders' meeting in Parliament next Tuesday regarding the recent salary increment. The highest tourism earnings recorded in a month after January 2020 were recorded in January this year. The Finance State Minister says that the IMF team is to arrive in Sri Lanka for the second EFF review. The Russian naval ship Varyag arrived at the Colombo port on a formal visit yesterday. In foreign news, the UN and medics say many Gaza aid attack victims shot. IGP Pujitha Vikramasinghe says that the Yukti Operations Office will be continued. The IGP said that the operation will take place efficiently in the future. He made these remarks after worshipping the sacred temple of the Tooth this morning. The Health Minister Ramesh Patrana says that the government has decided to purchase essential drugs which are not available in the government hospitals from the private sector. The minister made this comment while participating in an inspection tour in the Gampaha hospital today. The minister pledged to provide the necessary solutions for the issuance of the Gampaha hospital. Officials of the Central Bank have been asked to attend the party leaders' meeting in Parliament next Tuesday to express their explanations regarding the recent salary increment of the Central Bank. The decision to summon CB officials was taken during a meeting of the Committee on Parliamentary Businesses held last morning. The Central Bank officials will be asked about the process and rationale behind the recent salary hike given to its employees. Earlier this week, the Central Bank requested the President for an opportunity to explain to MPs why the salaries were increased. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. A high-level discussion for the reoperation of the Valachene paper factory was held at Batikalo recently. The discussion was organized by the Sectoral Oversight Committee on National Economic and Physical Plans. It has been indicated here that about $1.2 million is required for repairs to the machinery of the Valachene paper factory. If the machinery of the factory is improved, it can produce 5 tons of paper per day. It is also indicated here that 22 million rupees per month can be earned profitably. The focus here was on converting a portion of the 340-acre Valachene paper factory into a tourist zone. The first scoliosis awareness program along with the walkathon was held this morning. It was held at the Independence Square in Colombo. The walkathon was held at the Independence Square in Colombo and the announcement was made by Dr. Niluka Velikala, the director of the Lanka E-Doc and chairperson of the Serendip Group. Speaking about it, Dr. Niluka stated that for a country like Sri Lanka, the incidence of scoliosis, a disease that affects the spine, is quite high, and this affects especially girl children in adolescent age groups. The walkathon, supported by the Ministry of Transport, of the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education, echoes the commitment of everyone for this noble cause. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka announces that the highest tourism earnings recorded in a month after January 2020 were recorded in January this year. The tourism earnings reported in January 2023 were $154 million. Earnings in tourism have increased to $342 million in January this year. It is a growth of 122.7% compared to the previous year, the Economic Research Department of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka stated. The Central Bank also stated it is a special fact that the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority received $342 million in January this year, surpassing the estimated amount of tourism earnings of $269 million. The Russian naval ship Varyag arrived at the Colombo port on a formal visit yesterday. The ship was welcomed by the Sri Lanka Navy in accordance with naval tradition. The 187-meter-long ship is a missile cruiser manned by a crew of 529. The crew members of the ship are expected to take part in several programs and visit some of the tourist attractions in the country. Varyag will depart tomorrow.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Veda Mahatmya.
The deputy incumbent of the Gangarame Mahavihara, Venerable Dr. Kirinde Assajitera, accompanied by a group of Thai Buddhist devotees, met with President Ranil Wickremesinghe at the Presidential Secretariat recently. During the meeting, a substantial financial donation of $50,000 was presented to the President. President Wickremesinghe directed the Secretary to the President, Mr. Saman Ekanayake, to allocate the donated funds towards the Let's Wipe a Teardrop project, which is proposed to be launched by the President's Fund, aimed at providing assistance to the underprivileged groups in the country. This marks the third occasion this group has generously donated funds for charitable causes in Sri Lanka. In both 2010 and 2011, they contributed $200,000 to the Gangaramaya temple in Colombo, and these donations were utilized to improve sanitary facilities in 1,800 Buddhist temples throughout the country.
The main news story was brought to you by Sinhala Vedamahatmya.
And now in Watchlight, 2 heart-lung machines valued at 80 million rupees were supplied to the Lady Ridgeway Hospital for Children under the program of supplying essential medical equipment to the hospitals implemented under the guidance of Health Minister Dr. Ramesh Patirana. A heart-lung machine, also called a cardiopulmonary bypass machine, is a device that takes over the function of the body's heart and lungs during open heart or traditional surgery. The machine circulates the essential oxygen-rich blood to the brain and other vital organs during open heart surgery, allowing the cardiac surgery team to operate on a heart that is blood-free and still. The machines currently in use for this purpose at the LRH are outdated, and machines are being used for more than 15 years. According to the hospital sources, about 3,000 children are currently on waiting lists for heart surgery.
Coming up, World News.
In world news headlines now, the UN and medics say many Gaza aid attack victims shot. Iranians vote in legislative key assembly polls amid economic concerns. UN officials warn of possible war crimes and rape as a weapon in Sudan. A United Nations team finds many injured in Thursday's Israeli attack on Palestinians awaiting food aid in Gaza City have gunfire wounds, as the acting director of the Al-Avda hospital says 80% of the wounded brought to the hospital had been shot. The bodies of 3 more Palestinians killed in the food aid massacre have been recovered, Gaza's health ministry announced, bringing the overall death toll to 115, with some 760 wounded. The United States military will airdrop humanitarian aid into Gaza as Israel continues to restrict the access of vital humanitarian supplies via land routes. 7 Israeli captives were killed as a result of Israel's bombardment of Gaza, according to Hamas's Qassam brigades. At least 30,228 people have been killed and 71,377 wounded in Israeli attacks on Gaza since the 7th of October. The revised death toll in Israel from the 7th of October attack stands at 1,139. Iranians are voting for a new parliament in an election marred by frustration over economic woes and restrictions on political and social freedom. The election on Friday is the first formal measure of public opinion since anti-government protests in 2022-2023 spiraled into some of the worst political turmoil since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Iranian officials and even the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei urged the public to cast ballots, but polling stations in the country's capital Tehran appear to have few voters. Authorities have largely barred politicians calling for any change within the country's theocracy, known broadly as reformists, from running in the election, leaving mostly only a broad slate of conservative or hardline figures. The United Nations Human Rights Chief has said that the apparent deliberate denial of safe access for humanitarian agencies within war-torn Sudan could amount to a war crime. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, yesterday said that Sudan has become a living nightmare. Almost half of the population, 25 million people, are in urgent need of food and medical aid. Some 80% of hospitals have been put out of service. The paramilitary Rapid Support Forces has been fighting Sudan's army for control of the country since April last year, in a war that has killed thousands, displaced millions inside and outside the country, and sparked warnings of famine. Both sides have killed thousands, seemingly without remorse, Turk said, noting the use of heavy artillery even in densely populated urban areas. He said in 11 months, at least 14,600 people had been killed and 26,000 others injured. Actual figures are undoubtedly much higher. And now the main points of the World News segment once again. The UN and medics say many Gaza aid attack victims shot. Iranians vote in legislative key assembly polls amid economic concerns. A UN official warns of possible war crimes, rape as a weapon in Sudan.
Development News.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe emphasized that the Sri Lanka Navy has been entrusted with the responsibility of safeguarding Sri Lanka's oceanic territories, including the Indian Ocean region. He underscored that the nation's economic initiatives will not be permitted to suffer any harm in the Indian Ocean. Additionally, the President highlighted the historical context of the closure of the Suez Canal for a decade during the 1967 Israeli-Arab War and its effects on the Colombo port's operations. He emphasized the imperative of ensuring the security of the Suez Canal and the Red Sea to safeguard the economic interests of the country's ports. President Ranil Wickremesinghe made these remarks while delivering a speech at the Presidential Fleet Review of the Sri Lanka Navy held yesterday at the Trincomalee Harbour. As Commander-in-Chief, President Ranil Wickremesinghe was warmly welcomed with a guard of honour by the Sri Lanka Navy upon his arrival at the Trincomalee Naval Base.
Moving on with sports news.
Bayern Munich could end the weekend 10 points off the top of the Bundesliga after dropping points against Freiburg. Christian Gunter fired the mid-table hosts into a lead with a fine 20-yard strike. Bayern thought they had turned it around through Matis Tel's excellent curling effort and Jamal Musiala's placed shot after a solo run, but Lucas Höhler struck an 87th-minute volley to snatch a point for the hosts. Meanwhile, American Christian Coleman says he is stepping into his prime after beating Noah Lyles to a 60-meter gold in their showdown at the World Athletics Indoor Championships in Glasgow. Coleman, the world record holder in the event, clocked a world-leading 6.41 seconds to take an impressive victory. World 100 meters and 200 meters champion Lyles, unable to add to his expanding list of global sprint titles, ran 6.44.
Go ekak tiyana youth eකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු හීන හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithru account, NSB IAM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
The State Minister of Finance Shehan Singh said that an International Monetary Fund team will be arriving in Sri Lanka for the second review of the Extended Fund Facility Programme, which is scheduled to commence on the 7th of March. Minister Singh said that he believes the second review for the third disbursement under the Extended Fund Facility will be conducted for a period of around 2 weeks during a press briefing at the Presidential Media Centre on Wednesday. The minister, speaking to the media, said the second review will commence from the 7th of March and we are very confident that it will be a smoother review of the first review.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekak tiyana youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු හීන හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithru account, NSB IAM, a plan for your dream.
And now in economic news, the Minister of Agriculture and Plantation Industries, Mahinda Amaraveera, has announced that the government-owned fertilizer companies will offer high-quality tea fertilizer to growers at a discounted rate compared to the market price. Additionally, he revealed that the Agritech 24 Agricultural Technology Vision exhibition will commence today at the Agritech Park in Bata, Hambantota, in conjunction with the 37th Asia-Pacific Conference of the Food and Agriculture Organization. Addressing a press briefing at the Presidential Media Centre on the theme Collective Path to a Stable Country held yesterday, the minister elaborated that the current hot weather conditions prevailing across the island have led to an overflow of water springs.
Weather report.
Showers or thunder showers may occur at a few places in the Kalutara, Ratnapura, Nuwara Gala and Mathura districts in the evening or night. A few showers are likely in the southern and eastern provinces during the morning. Mainly dry weather will prevail elsewhere in the island. Fairly strong winds above 30 to 35 kilometers per hour can be expected at times in the northwestern province and in the Hambantota district. That was with the report, and now the headlines of this news broadcast once again. The IGP says that the Yukti Operations Office will continue. The Health Minister says that the government has decided to purchase essential drugs from the private sector. Officials of the Central Bank have been asked to attend the party leaders' meeting in Parliament on Tuesday regarding the recent salary increment. The highest tourism earnings recorded in a month after January 2020 were recorded in January this year. The Finance State Minister says that the IMF team to arrive in Sri Lanka for the second EFF review. The Russian naval ship Varyag arrived at the Colombo port on a formal visit yesterday. In foreign news, the UN and medics say many Gaza aid attack victims shot. That concludes this news broadcast. You're with the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation, and it's back to your host as always this Saturday, Asanka Veerasinghe on the other side. Over to you, Asanka, and I believe you'll be linking up the match as well. Over to you, Asanka, this Saturday.